Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And this is episode 477 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network for August 27th, 2017. This week, HTC is shopping around, Sony is talking to Microsoft, and VidAngel cannot change content from anyone anymore. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, thank you for making us a part of your day, whether it be on Facebook, iTunes, the Podcast Play app in the Windows Store, Google Play, Music Podcasts on Android, the myriad of other podcatchers, including Stitcher, or on any of our live streaming platforms, including Livestream, YouTube Live, Mixer, and Periscope, or of course on our apps, PLUGHITZLive.com/apps. Thank you for making us a part of your day. This here, as I said, is F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, the flagship show on the PLUGHITZ Live family of content. We are live every Sunday night at about 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join us live by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the chat rooms on any of the four platforms. Periscope is the one that's in front of me here in the studio, so if you really want my attention, that's probably your best bet, but I've got the other three open over here as well. We definitely want your input as we talk. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay. You can subscribe too by going to plughitzlive.com/subscribe. There you can get F5 Live, the Pilch Point with Avram Pilch, which will be on in just a little bit, and Avram's going to talk about the Intel 8th Gen core processors and whether or not it's time to buy. Our first look series, which we're actually going to do a special episode of in a couple of weeks for the FTC launch. We're going to do the Robot and Weekend program. We're going to join a team here in Tampa, and so we'll do a show from there, which will be a special broadcast. Our special events and all of our other series as well. I have a new one that's going to be starting in a couple of weeks. Since we travel a lot, we've decided, and we go to restaurants a lot, we've decided to talk about our travel and our food as we travel. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be going to Anime Weekend Atlanta. So while I'm there, I'm going to start that series and talk about our experience from place to place, which should be a lot of fun. And all of those will be available to subscribe there. And the 3000 Brigade podcast, which has its first episode of the relaunch, which we'll be publishing hopefully this week from MetroCon a couple of weeks ago. So definitely go there and subscribe to all of that. And I think with that, Avram, my spiel is done. How are you?
Great.
I think I've got the old script back. What do you think?
Yes, you got it back.
So how was your week?
All right, not too bad. You know, busy times.
Yes.
Lots of interesting news. I mean, I think people were, Monday was a big day in our office because of the eclipse.
I was going to ask him how all that went.
Good. I mean, it was record-setting traffic for our sister site, space.com, and
That's awesome.
I helped them out. I wrote a couple articles for them during the day to help them out. Probably got more visitors than anything I ever write. And they really weren't that big of an article. Let's see. I wrote an article about President Trump forgetting to put on his glasses, and that was getting ridiculous traffic. And it wasn't just, I mean, obviously I wasn't the primary source. I wasn't there at the White House.
Right.
I was just, repeating the news that was out there. But nevertheless, being on space.com, that's a place that people would want to read about that kind of thing.
Sure.
So, so it's been an interesting week, and then obviously big news with Intel, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about in a few. launching their new CPUs to some controversy, and and we prepare. Next week is going to be IFA Berlin, big tech show. I personally am not going, but my colleagues Andrew Friedman and Phil Michaels are going, and they're going to be covering all the stuff there. And we know there's going to be a lot of new products announced. Oh, and lest we forget, the Galaxy Note 8.
Yes.
Was announced this week.
And Android Oreo. Which we were right on the name.
Right. Galaxy Note 8. Did you know that Samsung, in their endless quest for creative spelling, does not put a space before the 8?
Yes. They did the same thing with the 7. It drove me crazy every time I saw a space between the Note and the 7 in like articles and stuff. I'm like, that's not the name of the phone. But yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of not putting the space, but I think that it's funny. Avram's in his first 5-minute pause. I'm not a fan of not putting the space, but if they're not going to put the space, I think we should not put the space. But anyway, you're moving again. Welcome back.
I have to say, this will be my final comment on this because we've got more important stuff to talk about. We have a rule at our parent company, Perch, so this rule applies to Laptop and Tom's Guide, where I'm an editor, and it applies to all of our other sites as well. We don't give in to marketing spelling. Like, there's some cases where it's like, okay, like people always spell ThinkPad with a capital P and MacBook with a capital B, and that's fine. But all these companies that want to do all kinds of wackadoodle spelling, like don't put a space between Note and 8, or they want to all caps their name when it's not an abbreviation, just to like scream at you. Our copy desk says no, we won't do that. So, or like NVIDIA tries to spell their name with a lowercase n and an uppercase V.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crime. It's a crime against grammar.
I would like to point out that I had no idea that Apple capitalized the B in MacBook. I just checked just because I had absolutely no idea that they did that.
Yeah, and there's a few things like that is such a makes sense common spelling. Okay, we'll go along with it. But when people want to all cap things or like do all kinds of crazy capitalizations, like lowercase first letter but capitalize some other letters, like I think that's a bridge too far. So and I think the search results will also bear out, like, what are people searching for too. When you write articles,
sure,
you want to make sure that you're using what people are searching for in Google.
Fair enough.
I sincerely doubt that anyone is searching for Galaxy Note 8 with the E and the 8.
Yeah,
have no space.
Other than myself. Yeah, I can.
Other than the marketing manager at Samsung who came up with that idea, or in previous case, Samsung likes to spell their S series with a space between the S and the number. So like Galaxy S space 8 or Galaxy S space 7. Like nobody searches for it that way though.
No.
So
yeah, I understand.
The public speaks with their search terms about what is a reasonable spelling.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we'll talk about Intel in a little bit, but for now, how about we get down to some news? This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Back to school. Right now, students can save 10% on the new Surface Pro and many other products throughout the Microsoft Store, whether it be a Surface product, the Surface Pro, the Surface Book, something like that, or an Xbox One S, pre-order of the One X. By the way, the One S has a new bundle this week right now for Minecraft. I'm not even into Minecraft, and I've got to say it's probably the most attractive custom Xbox I've ever seen. So maybe go check it out. But it's not just the Microsoft products. There's the HTC Vive, which we're going to talk about in just a second. $200 price discount started this week. You can get that as well, and a bunch of games and Office and all of that, everything that you need for back to school or for your office by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So, speaking of HTC, they have been in an interesting place as of late. In the old days, like HTC was one of the names in smartphones. They white labeled hardware for Palm. They white labeled hardware for T-Mobile and Sprint and Verizon. They manufactured stuff under their own name. They supported basically any operating system that was out there. They were like the guys. If you wanted to produce a smartphone and you didn't want to build it yourself, HTC is probably who built it for you. In the last couple of years, though, not so much. They've really kind of shrunk down their focus, and it hasn't gone well for them. They've been in some financial trouble for a while. If you go, check out any of the financial blogs or even, a lot of tech blogs, you'll see, quarterly reports have not been great for them. They did decide they wanted to try and at least somewhat go back to the old days where they had a more diverse portfolio than just Android phones. And so they partnered up with Steam or Valve to produce the HTC Vive, which Avram talks about often, that he loves that piece of hardware.
There's no comparison in anything that I've used to the Vive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've seen a bunch of stuff in action, and I'm totally with you. The Vive, for enclosed VR, the Vive is it.
I mean, it's 2 years old at this point, and frankly, nothing that we've seen comes close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, have you tried the new Windows? The new Windows VR? I guess they call them mixed reality, but that have you tried like the Acer prototype or any of those?
I've had a couple of models. Yeah.
What do you think of the quality?
Yeah, the ones that are out there right now are not great. What are they? The Acer and the HP are the two that are out in the wild.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but all of them use. I found this out. They all use the same hardware. It's just the design that's different. So whatever other companies are coming out with them, you're not going to get like sharper images or something like that. Like the main difference is going to be what they bundle with it and how you like the look and comfort of the headset.
Okay.
But as far as like the resolution and the all that stuff and the sensors, it's a standard. Apparently, it's not a like some will do better and some will do worse. At least that's what I've been told by a few vendors. So, I look at that and it's blurry.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, if you stare at something in the piece
It'll
of software for a little while, it'll focus up what's in your main vision, but not what's in your peripheral.
Yeah.
And it's not immediate. And so, frankly, I found it kind of sick. And I didn't use it for very long.
Yeah.
I found it a little vomit-inducing because it's like so blurry.
And the point of talking about these headsets is the fact that like they're technically not even out yet. Like
right. So
they're not even close to the Vive.
They're brand new and they're not even close to the Vive.
Yeah. So
I mean, Vive is more expensive, but you've had years, a couple of years to try and catch up to the Vive, and nobody has. And so, it's without question the best VR experience.
Sure. And And now today the price difference is not what it was. Yes, it's about double. The Vive is now coming in at like 600, and the Acer and HP are coming in at 300. But for that double is totally different.
Well, look, it's like the same thing about saying, do you want to buy like a cheap, the cheapest thing to buy is nothing, right?
Right.
So if you're going to get an experience that's not very good and you can't afford the experience that is good, this isn't like, food, clothing, and shelter. It's VR entertainment, so you could skip it until it becomes affordable,
right,
or you can afford it.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, getting back to HTC, like, to me, that's their real strength right now.
Yes.
And unfortunately, in the world of phones, which is probably accounts for more of their revenue, because Vive is kind of expensive and kind of still kind of boutique product, for early adopters.
Yeah.
And also there's another barrier to entry, which is you need space in your house.
Right.
And that's a serious barrier to entry.
Sure.
Like, I have a house, not an apartment, and after I saw the Vive a couple of times, I came home and I said to my wife, listen, can we like clear a room and then I'll buy a Vive just so we can have like a Vive room. It's like, what room are we going to give the house we're going to give up just to have Vive?
Yeah.
And how often are you going to play it to justify that? I mean, it's really difficult because you need to have maybe not a whole room, but you need to have like a certain amount of like open free space.
Yeah, for sure.
Without furniture in it, without a pole or a wall.
Yep.
Or like it's an issue. So but hey, if you get to try it, wow. Whereas their phones haven't been that impressive the last couple of years. They used to be, but now they're like not much of a competitor.
Yeah, and it's put them in it. It's one of those catch-22s, right? They started to see sales decreases because Samsung was owning the Android space, and so just like a panicky restaurant, right? So quality gets cut a little bit to save costs, and then sales go down because of it. And so they found themselves in a spiral that's put them into financial trouble. And so where we are today is they are considering their options. The exact phrase, of course, is that they are looking at, I can't remember the exact words. It's business speak for we're looking for a buyer. Exploring strategic options, that's the term, which is basically business speak for we're considering a buyer. Now, here's the thing. They're not necessarily considering a buyer for the whole company. They are considering possibly spinning the Vive division into its own company and then letting the handset division go, or possibly letting the whole thing go. They're that very early. Strategic options means we don't quite know what we're doing, but we know we're in trouble and something has to change.
Well, this is an interesting question. If I were another company and I could buy the Vive division and not the phone division, although here's one of my questions: why has nobody else come out with the Vive? If they're working with Steam, do they have like an exclusive that only they can make? That only they can make this type of thing?
A Steam-powered headset? No.
Yeah. So, I mean,
because technically, the Samsung VR devices can access all the Steam stuff too, or at least most of it.
I mean, I guess the tracking is part of it. I mean, it would be nice to see somebody who really cares about like pushing that envelope, because also they haven't done anything with it in like 2 years. Yeah. Like, it's great, and they still haven't done that much with it in 2 years. So like, I can only imagine what it would be like in the hands of a company that like really was trying to push it.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I wouldn't want to see like a regular hardware vendor buy it, like a regular PC OEM, like a Dell or a Lenovo or whatever buy it, because I feel like,
Definitely not HP.
yeah, I feel like, and not that those companies do bad, but like their acquisitions haven't well, like it needs somebody who's more good at pushing new platforms,
Yeah.
rather than like being part of another platform, like being part of Microsoft or being part of Android.
Well, the possibility also exists that Vive becomes what HTC is, and the hardware division is the thing that goes up for sale.
Yeah, it's possible, but I'm also just thinking like someone else could do more with it.
Yeah.
Like a logical choice actually would probably be Microsoft, but I don't know because like Microsoft has its own competing things, but it also has said that Vive will be part of the Windows mixed reality, right?
Absolutely.
So
it supports the Windows 10 mixed right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually think Microsoft would be a good owner for them. I mean,
because it would give them two ways internally, two ways to look at the mixed reality concept.
Yeah. Well, nobody's, here's the thing. $3,500 is only for businesses. Their other headsets. So they're not really playing in the same space.
Right. So this would give them the full high-end self-contained HoloLens, and then the more traditional tethered Vive, both being able to do Windows 10 mixed, which obviously they've already got a partnership with HTC on it. It wouldn't be a bad place for Microsoft to be, and then allow like HP and Acer to be in that $300 price point, so that all of a sudden Windows 10 mixed has this huge range of capabilities that kind of anybody could get into. That would be an interesting thing. Right now it looks like the phone division is the part that they want to put up, and that, believe it or not, Google is the company that they're talking to after having failed once to have a hardware division. Yeah. That's the noise that I made too.
Like, I don't think Google wants to be in hardware though. Like, it's weird. They have very mixed feelings about being in hardware, it seems like.
And it almost seems to change day to day.
Right, because no, they never manufactured their own Nexus. Do we know who manufactured the Pixel?
I don't remember. I feel like I knew at one point.
But supposedly they designed it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, one of the little secrets that a lot of people will know is a lot of companies don't actually own factories. Like a lot of, there's a lot of companies that exist in China just to manufacture stuff for other people. For example,
Foxconn being the company that everybody recognizes.
Yeah. Foxconn is not only used by Apple, but there's a lot of Foxconn-like companies out there that do stuff like some people may not know that ASUS runs one called Pegatron that does manufacturing for other people. So MSI, I believe, does it. So
the Pixel was HTC.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, the Pixel, while a lot of people liked it, including me, nobody liked the design.
Yeah.
We liked the camera, and we liked, maybe liked the software, but the design was, even when it came out, looked outdated, and now looks really outdated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, at one time HTC was really rocking with their designs. I mean, HTC had the first 4G phone. HTC used to be an innovator, but that time has long since passed.
Yeah. I mean, I have a whole case of HTC phones from my past, but that wouldn't be the case today.
Yeah. So I wish them luck. I mean, I would say that I feel sad that, another independent company may be getting swallowed, and I don't like that from that because the market needs competition. But so far, I just haven't had their groove in a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
If
so
if
if
you want to
someone can,
stick around, you have to compete. You can't just get complacent, and that's really what HTC did.
now, I mean, like for example, who is competing? Like LG is competing in Android space. Like, I wouldn't say that they're necessarily winning, but they have like they're trying really hard. They've
Yeah.
come out with some really compelling phones, and they keep going at it. Of course, LG also has the advantage of being a much larger company that maybe they can afford to not be a leader, not be the leader in phones because they're a leader in TVs or
Sure.
whatever. So
Yeah.
they have a lot to fall back on, unlike HTC. But yeah, I mean, they just haven't excited anyone in a long time, I think. So maybe someone could come along and give them some swagger back. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. It would be nice because it's a company that I definitely uh, have liked. Like I said, I've had at least a dozen HTC devices, and as my primary device over a long period of time, and so it would be nice to see that brand kind of live up to what the letters stand for. High tech computer. It would be nice to see them live up to what the letters stand for. This week's Pilch Point with Avram Pilch is proudly powered by Monster Products. The headphones on my head right now, the Monster Elements, available in on-ear and over-ear. They are by far my favorite headphones I've ever owned, but they're not for everybody. There are also other styles, smaller versions, in-ear, small sports style, Bluetooth, corded, and of course speakers. Everything from the little tiny hotshot to the big monster blaster, whose review went up today. And of course all the cables to connect these and your computer and all of your other devices, and power as well, available by going to f5live.tv/monster. And that music means that it is time for the Pilch Point with online editorial director of Laptop Magazine and Tom's Guide, Avram Pilch. Abram!
Hey,
Intel!
Intel.
It's been a big week.
It's been a big week. So, for those who are not keep track every year, last few years around this time, late August, September, Intel announces a refresh to their CPU line, and they always give it something Gen core. So now we're on the eighth gen, eighth gen core. What does that mean for those who don't know? It means they've taken last year's CPU, the CPUs that are in all the laptops now and pretty much all the new desktops, new ones made, they're replacing them with newer ones that are a little bit faster, or maybe a lot faster. But they start slow. So right now they're coming out with 4 CPUs, and they're only going to be for mainstream consumer laptops. So these are what are called U series processor, Core i5 and Core i7 processors. So the ones that you see in most laptops, except for gaming laptops and workstations, which have H series processors. And then the really thin 2-in-1s that have Y series, that's not being refreshed yet. Now, all these things are going to be refreshed. Business notebooks, not until January, because probably not until January, they didn't say exactly, because they don't come out with those at the same time. So you're going to see when Intel refreshes their CPU, almost immediately, most of the major PC manufacturers announce that they're refreshing their laptop lines. So we would expect uh, the IFA show is coming up this week, and we would expect to see major refresh announcements from, all the big PC vendors. Obviously, Apple doesn't go by doesn't march to the beat of its own drummer, so I wouldn't expect to see MacBooks updated probably till next spring. And Microsoft also kind of operates on its own schedule.
That's for
so
sure.
I wouldn't expect to see any of the Surfaces updated soon, unless they decide to update the Surface Book, because it's been like 2 years already since they've updated it. So there's that. But should you or should you not wait for this? Well, if you are considering buying one of the consumer notebooks that would have a U series processor, which is basically most Core i5 and Core i7 notebooks, you should seriously consider waiting for the 8th gen core, where laptops with them will probably be out within 1 to 2 months. Why should you wait? Because for the first time with 8th gen core, you're getting quad core processor. You're getting a quad core processor in a mainstream consumer notebook. Like, up until now, you've had to buy either a more expensive gaming notebook or some type of a workstation notebook to get 4 cores. Having 4 cores means you're going to have better multitasking, and everyone's multitasking. It doesn't matter whether you have one window open. You've got a lot of stuff running in the background. So it's going to run 4 cores and 8 threads, which means like 8 different tasks at a time. And that's really going to improve performance. So with that, and with some other architectural sort of behind the scenes things Intel has done, Intel claims that the new chips are going to be 40% faster than last year's, obviously depending what task. Now, we haven't gotten to test them yet, so we can't say with absolute certainty that they perform that much better. But going from dual core to going to quad core seems like a pretty big leap. Now, there's some controversy here that and if you're not a big and if you've not been following Intel processors for a few years, if it's then this won't matter to you. But all the processors have a kind of, besides being 6th gen core, 7th gen core, 8th gen core, they all have like a code name, right, for what the architecture, the design inside of the chip is. So the 7th gen core, last year's model, was called Kaby Lake. This year's 8th gen core, the first group of them are going to be called, guess what? Kaby Lake Refresh. Now, so they've just made a slight change. Now, everybody knows, because the people who follow the industry know what sort of Intel's next few generations are codenamed. Everyone was expecting a completely new architecture called Coffee Lake, and then another one called Cannon Lake after that. And Cannon Lake is highly anticipated because Cannon Lake is going to take the size of the die for the processor and shrink it down from 14 to 10 nanometers. And when you do that, you improve the amount of performance you can get, because you're basically generating less heat and using less power to do the same thing. So everyone's been waiting for this die shrink to get from 14 nanometers, which we've had for like the last 3 years or so, down to 10. Now, what's confusing is when that comes out, it's still going to be called 8th gen core. So Intel is calling Kaby Lake Refresh 8th gen core. They're going to call Coffee Lake, which is still 14 nanometers, but is a new architecture, 8th gen core. And they're going to call Cannon Lake, the new long anticipated 10 nanometer processor, also 8th gen core. So all 3 different architectures are going to have the same brand name. Right now, the only one that's coming out, those 4 chips, are Kaby Lake Refresh. But over time, they plan to use the same brand name for several different types of chip, which could be very confusing for users.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are I imagine that they will that like obviously the model numbers themselves. Like for example,
Yeah.
sitting in front of me, I've got a Surface Book, and it's got a 6600U, which
Right.
lets us know a couple of things. 6th gen U series, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But it also lets us know that with the 66 that it's of a certain spec. If you're really looking,
No,
you'll be
listen.
able to tell, right?
Listen, I mean, if you first of all, there are many ways you'll be able to tell if you know to look. So in fairness, like my colleague Andrew Friedman wrote an article about how this is confusing. In fairness, if you're geeky enough to care, you're probably geeky enough to look it up and find out. There's a lovely website that everyone should know about called arc.intel.com, where you can plug in the name of any processor that Intel has ever made, and it will, or is making now, and it will tell you all the specs about that processor, what year it came out, how many nanometers it is, like whether it supports vPro management or not, like how many cores it has, maximum clocks, like all the little details about every processor. So if there's ever a question about like what if you get the model number of a processor, there's no doubt you can get all the details if you want to go online and go to arc.intel.com or somewhere else, probably on Wikipedia too. But for the person looking, you know, looking at the sticker on it or reading the spec sheet, they may not necessarily be aware of all these differences, and we'd like things to be a little bit more transparent to the reader, to the person reading the spec sheet or whatever. However, that gives you even more reason to go to laptopmag.com and other sites that do reviews, because we will inform you when these things happen, and how well the processors work, which is really the bottom line of what you care about. Like, am I getting good battery life? Am I getting good performance? That's what you really care about. And could I be getting better performance with something else? So bottom line, I'm really, really interested to see how these 8th gen core processors perform. Uh, I would be really interested to see whether they have a negative impact on battery life, which would offset any performance gains because you really want good battery life. Uh, Intel has been kind of cagey about the battery life. They've said these systems will get many of them will get up to 10 hours or something, which is not great because there are a lot of systems get over 10 hours, but I think they're maybe softballing it. Ultimately, it comes down to how big is the battery in the laptop, which Intel has no control over. How much does the screen use up? All that stuff. But if you had two different computers that were otherwise the same, one with 7th gen and one with 8th gen, would the battery life be the same, or would 8th gen be better, or would 8th gen be worse? My guess would be the best that we can hope for is the same, because you're doubling the number of cores. So it's hard to believe that it would actually do better.
Fair enough.
But we'll see. So to make a long story short, if you're considering buying a consumer PC laptop now, something that would have a Core i5 or Core i7, is not a gaming notebook or a workstation or a business laptop. Your standard, Dell Inspiron, Lenovo IdeaPad type of HP Pavilion, Spectre, whatever type of laptop, those types of laptop, just mainstream consumer laptops, I would consider waiting to see if the laptop that you have your eye on is going to be refreshed in the next couple of months.
Sure.
Now, if you're spending under $500, don't worry about it, because they're not replacing Core i3 and they're not replacing Pentium or Celeron processors, the processors that you usually see in sub $500 laptops.
Oh, okay.
So those aren't getting replaced anytime soon. So basically, it's a little bit of a narrow band. Only Core i5 and Core i7 U series laptops are getting refreshed in the next couple months, but those are some of the most popular ones. So
as I said, it's the one that's sitting in front of me is the i7U. So
right, exactly.
That shows its popularity. That there just happens to be one of the processors we're talking about sitting here on the desk.
Most of the laptops that we review in a year, I wouldn't say all, I wouldn't say it's like 70 or 80%, but like the maybe more than 50% of the ones we review in a given year would fall into this category.
Gotcha. And do we know anything about the i3, or is it just it'll happen at some point? Yes,
at some point.
Okay.
I mean,
that's all the information we have.
Yeah, no, that's all. Like Intel has been very cagey about when they're going to release other stuff. My guess is they did say something about, well, we plan to make an announcement about desktop chips sometime this fall. But since they didn't say we plan to make an announcement about Core i3, or we plan to make an announcement about Celeron and Pentium, or we plan to make an announcement about the H series or the business versions of the U series, my expectation is CES. Gotcha. Because that's what it's been the last few years. Yeah. Right? The last few years, Intel's done exactly this. They've released the mainstream consumer U series ones in September, and then they've released most of the other ones in January. So my guess is if you're thinking about a gaming notebook or a business notebook or a workstation, which I guess would be a business notebook too, or a budget notebook, unless you really want to wait like 6 months, because January's not 6 months away, but if they're announcing the chip in January, your favorite computer probably won't be the computer that you were thinking of getting probably won't actually hit the shelf till February or March.
Right.
So, just some food for thought as you're planning out your purchase, if you are planning a purchase, or thinking about, hey, should I get a new laptop next year? Yeah, this may be a good opportunity.
Sure. Well, as always, Avram, definitely appreciate the information, details that obviously I don't I'm not necessarily able to keep up on. I knew that Intel announced stuff. I read Andrew Friedman's article, but even there, I'm just not able to hold all of it in my head, and I'm glad that you are.
It's one of the few things that I can hold.
Well, we always appreciate you bringing those details to us.
Always a pleasure. So if you want to read more about this, about Intel HN Core, or about laptops in general, I certainly recommend you go to laptopmag.com, where we have all this information along with reviews of all the best laptops today. Oh, and the worst ones too. But we have a best list of the best ones.
I guess a worst list is pretty important too. So.
No, we don't have a worst list, but you review, our goal is to review everything. So,
sure.
If we only reviewed things that we thought would be good, then we wouldn't be doing a good service.
Absolutely.
So we have lists of the best ones, but if you look through our raw list of reviews, you'll also see some of the worst ones, because there's no good without bad.
Absolutely. Because like we've always said, without the bad, we don't have a place in the industry.
Yes.
All right, well.
So thank you, Intel, for confusing people with this branding, because they'll need to read my articles.
There you go. And definitely do that. Definitely read the articles. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer, Create or destroy. Get $500 in creative software or $200 in games when you buy select Razer Blade laptops powered by Intel Core i7, which, funny, we were just talking about that. If you buy Stealth, you can get Corel Painter and Video Studio and Aftershot for free. If you buy a Razer Blade or a Pro, you can get World of Warships and Counter-Strike and Robocraft and Dreadnought and a whole bunch of other games as well. It's as easy as finding the computer that you're looking for, receiving an email, and then downloading the software. It's that easy. They've got laptops ranging from $1349 all the way up to $4,000, and all of them have are part of that bundle. So to find all those bundles, and of course a good mouse, a mouse pad, a keyboard, any of that, you can go to f5live.tv/Razer. Or even a computer case. I actually got a Razer computer case on the editing machine. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Let's talk about Microsoft and Sony and the fact that you cannot cross-play between consoles. A number of developers have wanted to implement this capability. Microsoft, about 2 years ago, came out and said, we're super excited. We really... Xbox Live, the matchmaking stuff, all available for cross-play. Let's do this. And Sony has basically said, no thanks. The developers for Rocket League a little while ago said that they were ready. We're ready to implement crossplay, that it would only take about one business day worth of work to have it working globally. And again, Sony said, no thank you, you're not allowed to do that, or we will not allow the game to continue to exist on PlayStation. Oh, well, that's pretty intense. Things may be in the process of changing, though. Microsoft has launched Minecraft, one of the best known games out there, on everything, including PlayStation 4. And apparently, Microsoft and Sony have been in talks to allow Minecraft to play cross-platform, which for a user-generated content game like Minecraft seems essential. And you know that Microsoft's all about it because the Switch already supports the common collection. So at Gamescom, the head of marketing for Xbox, Aaron Greenberg, said, absolutely, we're talking to Sony about crossplay. We do partner with them on Minecraft, and of course, we would like to enable them to be part of that, one community to unite gamers. So we're talking to them, and we're hopeful that they'll be supportive of it. So talks are happening. Hopefully Minecraft will officially be one platform, one collection, and that could spark the beginning of seeing games like Rocket League or even AAA titles like Call of Duty, where it doesn't matter whether you're on PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, it wouldn't matter. If somebody has bought the game, you can play against players.
So I think I understand Sony's point of view here. I don't think it's good for consumers. I don't think it's good for the industry. But I understand why Sony has taken this position, at least up until now. Seems to me like with Sony, what you have is like they don't have as much leverage, right, as Microsoft. First of all, Microsoft has the IP here in Minecraft, so
sure.
And so Sony can't really, like Sony, you want people to, if you're Sony, you probably want people to be able to play Minecraft and have a full experience on a PlayStation, because it makes the PlayStation less valuable if they can.
Yeah,
but
it makes it a second class citizen.
At the same time, I think Microsoft has kind of a natural advantage in over Sony. I mean, Sony the PlayStation obviously has, I think, probably a richer history than Xbox. But although Xboxes go back quite a way too, but with all the integration that Microsoft has done with Windows 10, and being able to kind of and I also think Xbox does a great job of like not forcing you to like buy the same games again when you upgrade, or like it's backward compatible with the old games. Like there's a lot of like, for someone who's not invested in either platform yet, there's a lot of reasons to go with Xbox and not nearly as many reasons to go with Sony. Now you start bringing people into the same community so they can play with their friends who have Xbox. Maybe this PlayStation thing not quite as valuable. Maybe trying to keep the system proprietary is how they survive.
Well, that's also been Sony's like corporate philosophy on everything for decades, is very very much the way Apple works today, right? Standards, not interested. We've got our own idea. You wanna interlink components? No problem. It's an 1/8 inch cable, but it won't work with anything but our stuff. That's kind of always been Sony's corporate mentality. Is it's all about us and forget everybody else. But today, the way the gaming community works, if you're forced into a closed system, I think that's the thing that ends up making people reconsider switching.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a double-edged sword for them, right? Because they're not with the times that, like in terms of at least cross-platform play, open is winning.
Because I mean, if you can play the same game between PC, Xbox, and Nintendo, it kind of makes Sony look like an island out in the...
Yeah. No, I think they're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to do it. But, I think there's like Nintendo wins because Nintendo is almost like a different... It's like a hamburger. It's like a hamburger and a White Castle, right? If you want a White Castle slider, you don't want a hamburger. It's not the same. It looks the same, but it's not the same food.
Right.
Like it's not like...
And it's definitely not the same consumer base.
But Burger King and McDonald's hamburgers are two versions of the same thing, really. I mean, it's my professional hamburger opinion.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Anyway, so Nintendo is sort of like White Castle. Like you can enjoy Xbox or PlayStation and also have a Nintendo, because Nintendo offers a different experience. They have games that only play for them.
Right.
And so like, and it's not about having the best performance or like the top features. It's about like this sort of Mario, Zelda like world that you want to play. So Nintendo can be comfortable living in a world where Xbox is also very successful.
You can go buy your White Castle and eat in the lobby of the McDonald's with your friend.
Yeah. It's fun. But like for those games, you're doing both. But like, I think Nintendo gets in trouble when they start letting Microsoft like make Mario Kart, or have Mario Kart on Xbox.
Then, absolutely.
Then they may have some trouble. But PlayStation, there's not that many platform exclusives between the two platforms. You have the PlayStation VR, which I've tried also and was not impressed with. So like, the more things that kind of open up that are not proprietary to Sony, kind of makes you wonder like, what's their selling point over Xbox when Xbox has all this great like integration with your PC and like the other computers that in your life.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting challenge for them, because like you said, it seems like it seems inevitable that they're going to have to get on board with this, because the idea of being the island it seems like the thing that's more detrimental to them than the idea of possibly looking like there's not as much to them, but once they do this, I bet they see online gameplay go up, even on like older titles, maybe if crossplay is added to like last year's stuff. If it's as easy as Rocket League says it is, maybe you'll see some of the older stuff like this current generation's Call of Duty add crossplay capabilities. So they may actually see subscriptions to PSN and stuff like that go up as a result. But I think what it's going to do is it's going to force them to get creative, which they have not really done in a couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see. I want Sony to get creative again. I miss the like true battle Xbox PlayStation where every day you're like, oh, did I or didn't I choose the right platform? I miss those days. This generation just hasn't had it, especially after Windows 10 came to the Xbox One. It just doesn't seem like this generation has that true battle anymore, and I'd love to see somebody light a fire under Sony to do it. And I think not having the exclusive for online play would be the thing that would force Sony to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the natural next step for these systems is to make VR as easy and as integrated, to the game experience as console gaming is.
Avram, you just
so much.
Hey, Avram, you just broke up on us and you went into slow motion. Will you say that sentence again?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just think in closing, I just think the next step for both Microsoft and for Sony is how do we make VR as seamless as we make non-VR gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously both companies think they have an idea on that with the PlayStation Pro and the Xbox One X, but let's see it. That might be like the real fight. And I'm with you on that. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies or let the professionals do it for you, because that's what they get paid for. The guys who used to do Mystery Science Theater 3000 are back and doing what they do best, making fun of movies. From blockbusters to star games, they've got a little bit of everything. The way it works is for a couple of bucks, you download the MP3, play it along with your DVD, Netflix, Amazon, wherever you happen to have the movie, and laugh. From time to time, however, they shake things up and they do a live event. The last one was Doctor Who, The Five Doctors. The next one will be Night of the Living Dead on October 25th in theaters nationwide. I cannot wait for this one. This might be my highlight of the year, unless they do another Sharknado. Because those are the best. They're already terrible to begin with. Anyway, so you can find out all the theaters that Night of the Living Dead will be playing in. You can find out all the movies and short films that have been riffed by going to f5live.tv/rifftracks with an X. Not entirely sure why my voice cracked there at the end, but whatever. It is what it is. Anyway, so Facebook. We talked about them last week, and the fact that they're trying to deal with misleading content. And this week, they announced some new features also around content, this time around instant articles. One of the things that instant articles has done is generated a lot of new views for publishers. But what it hasn't exactly done is allowed publishers to generate revenue. So Facebook has created a new program for inside of the instant article program that will allow publishers to create a paywall, either a partial or a full paywall. So, for example, maybe the New York Times publishes 25 things to instant articles in a week, and 5 of them are free, and the other 20 require you to be on the subscription service. Facebook is not going to be responsible for the subscriptions. They are not going to take a cut of the subscriptions today. And the publisher will be entirely responsible for it. Don't know how it's going to work. I've been trying to do some research on it because I've been doing research on instant articles as it is. I do not have enough information as of right now, but Zuckerberg said if people subscribe after seeing news stories on Facebook, the money will go directly to publishers who work hard to uncover the truth, and Facebook won't take a cut. We plan to start with a small group of U.S. and European publishers later this year, and we'll listen to their feedback, seemingly before rolling it out to all instant articles publishers. So that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, do we know how much of a cut they take on non-subscription articles, like on the ads that are shown? I mean, I haven't examined this so thoroughly about how many ads you get to see. I mean, I know with AMP, it's a limited suite of ads. It's not like the full Monty of ads that you get on a regular web page. It's really hard being in the. I say this because I hear about it every day. It's really hard being in the publishing, web publishing business. Actually, I should just say publishing business, because who's not publishing on the web?
Right.
I mean, I guess if you're not media, if you're like publishing, books, then you don't worry about it because people have to, are used to paying for those. But
Sure.
If you're trying to run a news organization of some type, then you have the options for earning revenue. It just keeps getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
People want to block your ads with an ad blocker, and in some ways that makes it worse because like companies start running more aggressive ads because they to get the money that they can for people who aren't blocking them. Then you have platforms like Facebook Instant Articles where where you don't get to run. I don't know how many ads you get to run and how much Facebook takes of it, but you don't get to run your full suite of ads that you need to make money. Google, the same thing with AMP, but that a lot of people are finding you these ways. So, and you're at a disadvantage if you don't use them in terms of keeping your readers and getting your readers. But wait a sec, I also have to make money. And so, I think it's kind of everybody's squeezing the publishers. Like everybody's squeezing them. Advertisers are squeezing them to get more aggressive, lower rates, less, give us more for less. Consumer readers are squeezing because they don't like to see ads and they don't want to pay subscription. And then you have Facebook and Google with like AMP and Facebook, and it's an article saying, well, we want your site to load so much faster and be more convenient for people who come through our service. So you can't have all the ads that you normally have. You can't have all the stuff you normally have to make money. So there's a real tension between like what the sort of, I guess you could call them distributors in Facebook and Google want, what advertisers want, what publishers need to actually like pay the bills, and what consumers want, which is like a speedy ad-free or nearly ad-free experience,
right,
without having to pay for it. So I'm glad that Facebook is going to allow these companies to charge subscription on Facebook Instant Articles, but that's only going to help a handful of companies that have managed to make it
Yeah.
with subscription. For the most part, it's very difficult to sell subscription to people. There are only a handful of media sites that are doing it successfully.
Yeah.
And I think those that are doing it successfully primarily are doing it on the strength of like old media brands, like New York Times, paper of record, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. Who else do you know of that is successfully selling subscriptions?
That's it.
Yeah. So everyone would like to, but you can't have it if you're just, you can't have it if you're, unless you either have such that reputation that those old world places have. And a lot of those people are, I think, also cross-subscribed to the paper version of those. Right. So they're like, oh, you still want a newspaper? Great. We'll throw in, we'll throw in digital.
Right.
So, but online only publications and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult.
It's rough.
I'm glad Facebook is doing this. What would be really nice is if the Facebooks and Googles of the world tried to find more ways to help publishers earn money through advertising. Or frankly, maybe they should be sharing some of their revenue with us, because the reason that people go to Google and the reason that people Facebook, they see content from other people. So you could argue, how much do you really want news on Facebook? Well, you probably do, but like having content available that is free on the open internet gives them value. Google would not exist if there was not an open internet full of free websites. If everything was behind a paywall, Google would be worthless.
Yes, indeed.
So instead of just like, hey, let me try and make it harder for you to do business, how about what they should be doing is trying to help, to find every way they possibly can to help publishers succeed, so that they can continue to be a good gateway to the content.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The other thing that's coming, it's a big deal, but not a huge deal. They're going to start putting publisher logos next to content, which will help you when you get one of those nonsense articles. You'll be able to see who published it before you try to go there, because when you mouse over, it may lie to you about where it's going. So Facebook wants to start posting, this is who published it. And I think that's a great idea. And that's going to be on the trending, and like anywhere that articles exist, they want to start putting the logo of the publisher, which is something that I totally support.
That's great, because right now all you really have to go on with fake news is like, do you trust the publisher?
Right.
Do you trust the outlet?
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of things that are floating around, and people, unfortunately, in our media landscape today, what you believe is true very often comes down to what outlets you trust. So if so at the very least, you as a Facebook user will be able to decide, I'm going to click this because I trust this source.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's good. I do kind of feel for Facebook in terms of like the whole fake news debate, like saying that Facebook should be doing more to stop fake news, because unfortunately, then they become an arbiter of content. And who's going to be the arbiter of content? Because right now, we have a large segment of the public, at least in the United States, that doesn't that doesn't even trust like CNN, which is an extremely mainstream, middle of the road publication. So I don't think Facebook wants to be in the role of deciding what's true and false.
Absolutely. They have said that they are not happy being thrown into the middle where they are right now. And I don't blame them at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, I understand their position. Like you as a consumer of information should be savvy and not believe everything. Just because something was published doesn't mean that it has credibility behind it.
Exactly. You can go to GoDaddy right now and get a domain for 99 cents and a WordPress blog for $1 a month. That just because it's published does not make it credible.
I mean, when I was I don't want to belabor this point, but when I was a kid, I remember going through the supermarket checkout line, and you would see all these. And by the way, most of them are still there. Inquirer's still there.
Yep.
And you go through the supermarket checkout line, and you'd see some of these headlines, like an alien baby or whatever, and I'd be like,
or an Elvis spotting.
That must be true, because they wouldn't be able to, no place that can afford to print something and distribute it and to get the supermarket to agree to carry it would be telling lies like that, would they? There were always lies in the supermarket checkout line, and now you don't even have to be able to print 1 million copies of something, or however many copies that they had printed, and just get supermarkets to put them on the shelf. What's great about the internet is that we've lowered the barriers to entry, so anyone can get their voice out there. But that also means that you, as a consumer of this information, need to be skeptical.
Yeah, you have to be listening to the voice to find out, what it's saying.
Now, all that being said, I love the Weekly World News. I miss it. I miss it terribly. Like, I'm not saying the Inquirer. I love the Weekly World News.
Okay.
I think they were from Florida. I think that they're totally out of business. But guys, if you're listening, just let me write one article. I would love to write an article for Weekly World News. It's like on my bucket list. So
interesting.
What I want to know is, like, do they just make it up whole cloth, or do they actually go and listen to someone who's nutty and just take what they say as verbatim?
The website is up and running.
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't know if it's still being updated and whatever, but I think there is still a website.
500 horsepower buggy, July 7th, 2017.
Anyway,
so at least the one that I just saw wasn't too old.
I still find them. I found them very amusing. Anyway,
locusts invade Detroit. I'm gonna have to look at that after the show.
My favorite Weekly World News article of all time, which I had on print, was the one about a guy who was like a Swami or something. He had learned some type of meditation, and he had not used the bathroom in 28 years because he had trained his body to absorb everything that he put in it.
I bet that man would have been interestingly shaped.
If he existed.
Right.
The headline was, Swami hasn't gone potty in 28 years.
Lovely.
It's like, oh man. These guys get to sit around all day. I mean, can you imagine the writers' meeting?
Oh my goodness.
What haven't we done? Well, we haven't done one about a guy who hasn't gone to the bathroom in 28 years. Let's do it.
Oh my goodness.
Stop right there.
This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Groove Music. All the music you love, play ad-free from one of the largest catalogs on the planet. You can listen anywhere you are, whether it be on your PC, your tablet, your phone, Android, iOS, Windows, your Xbox, or just on the web. Plus, you can download music on up to 3 devices, so you don't have to use your data plan. You don't have to have internet access or jump on the Wi-Fi at the airport. You can stream it all, or you can play it all right from your device, plus the things that you've come to expect. Playlists and custom radio stations based on artists and genres, and all of that. Plus, right now we have a free 30-day trial available by going to f5live.tv/groove. This has been a bit of a night of things that touch us personally. So let's end with one more. If I can get the music to pause in the background. Perfect. Okay. Let's end with one more. There's a company called VidAngel. VidAngel. I've been following this story for a while because they email me seemingly every week. Right up until I replied to their PR director, and that was the end of press releases from the company. Anyway, the company decided that some content might or might not be appropriate for viewers, and that you may not think that certain content is appropriate or not for yourself or your family or whatever. For example, the gold bikini scene in Star Wars, which is an example.
Is that for real, or
Yes.
are you just like theorizing?
Nope, that's for real. So
Can I get them to edit the Ewoks out? Keep the gold bikini, but can we get rid of the Ewoks? They kind of, harsh my mellow. Whenever I watch that movie.
I got a better one for you in a minute. So the way they decided to deal with this problem is to offer a streaming service that allows you to filter out content, nudity, dialogue, things like that. My favorite of all of their filters, it's not an Ewok filter, it's a Jar Jar Binks filter. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Well, so how does it work? Have you tried it? How does it actually function?
So the way that it works today, because they're trying something different after the end of the particular story that we're going to talk about, is different than it worked when this story started. I imagine that this story will terminate the second one as well. But the way it worked was they would go out and they would purchase a DVD, a physical DVD, for every person who wanted to filter content out of that movie. And then they would remove the content and allow it to be streamed. Which I know sounds bizarre and a lot like Zediva, which was not allowed to do that either. Even without the removing of content, Zediva was not allowed to do this.
That sounds very labor intensive. Did they have 5 customers? Like how did they manage to buy a DVD for each movie and then remove?
I don't know the internals. My guess is the way that they did it was they had a copy of the movie, like a digital on streaming service copy of the movie that they had tagged. This is nudity. This is language. This is this. This is that. And then you could turn it on and off, and it would play or mute or skip based on that. And that the DVDs were merely for the same idiotic reason that Zediva thought that they were going to get away with this crap. That because there was a physical copy for every customer, that would make it legal. As it turns out, nope. The appeals court for the 9th District this week fully put an end to VidAngel, at least in this policy. And here's the reason why the gold bikini is my go-to example. The judge said, Star Wars is still Star Wars even without Princess Leia's bikini scene. Meaning that VidAngel could not argue that it was a remix, which is something that is protected. It's common in music, right, to take an original work and then make changes to it, remix it, add and remove things, and then redistribute it as a unique piece of content. The judge was very clearly stating that Star Wars without the gold bikini is still Star Wars, so that argument will not work. They also tried to argue that it fell within the Family Movie Act of 2005, which allows an individual, a single human being, to crack content that they own, to remove objectionable content, but not to store it. Well, a company doing it and then distributing it in a new form does not apply.
I don't know how an individual would do this. What do you mean? Like,
I don't know.
What does that even mean?
I do not know. I think it allows you to like rip your DVD and then mute segments so that you could play it at home, so that maybe your kids wouldn't hear language. I don't know. It's a very strange.
Why does there
act.
even need to be a law for that? Because I mean, if I don't share it with anyone, who would know, and
right.
who would
I know.
like come into my house and see if I muted the movie? Like,
I know.
It's a little. I mean,
yes, it is very strange.
Yeah. So, and also with the DVD thing, did they actually like have like a whole bunch of just like a server farm of DVD players or something?
Nope. That's how Zediva worked, but that's not how this worked. The DVDs were just because they legitimately thought that they were going to be protected by the FMA.
In other words, so like as long as we have a copy, as long as we have it somewhere, even though it's all on a big hard drive, as long as we have a copy for every person concurrently streaming it, basically, right? Because these weren't bought to buy; they were to rent.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, yeah.
Well, so it's fascinating. Zediva was stepped on for a lot of the same practices several years ago, and then on top of the things that Zediva did that was proven to be against the law, these guys were also altering copyrighted content. There was no way this case ended in VidAngel's favor.
So how was Zediva different?
Zediva didn't alter any content, and they would physically put a DVD into a player and play it to your computer.
So was there a guy sitting there and like fast forwarding past the parts for you? Like,
no, there was none of the editing stuff. It was just a streaming service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just the streaming aspect. It didn't have any of the content control stuff.
Well, they didn't have a reason. Like this VidAngel thing, while I don't agree with it, there's an audience for that.
There is.
There's an audience of people who want their films to be like, made more family friendly. I used to not have any sympathy for that, but being a parent, I do have some sympathy for it, because it's like you want to show your kids these things. Like you could say, well, why don't you just show them like, G-rated stuff? But, you kind of would rather see Star Wars. So now I take the position, my son is 5, that I can't get him to sit through it, but I take the position that it's fine, let him watch Star Wars, that's cool. My number one concern is curse words. Because if he goes into school and starts saying that stuff, I'm going to be in big trouble. So like as long as he doesn't learn any bad words, or he doesn't try to like emulate something that he sees in a movie, like something violent, and obviously you don't want to have to explain like adult content to kids,
like the Romeo and Juliet law.
Yes, like the Romeo and Juliet law. Day with, Transformers 4 all of a sudden made itself less like. Can they filter that part out? Because that's one where they actually like added a layer of adult content in that was completely unnecessary. Um, but like, I mean, obviously, some people are very like they just they don't believe, like they think that like the bikini scene is a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I think that's parents trying to kind of put what they're thinking into the minds of children. Like if it's a young enough child, they're not going to have a thought about like, oh, it's bikini,
Plus, it's a swimsuit. If you've ever taken the kid to the beach,
right? Exactly. So,
that's why it's my favorite example. I'm so glad that the judge used that example.
I mean, that's kind of the egregious case. But listen, if you're showing somebody, like you want to show them something, and there's a lot of curse words in it. Here, I'll give you an example. I would have loved to show my son Spaceballs, right?
Sure.
Would love to show him. It came on the other day. I turned it on. I didn't remember it having so many like, naughty words in it. But it did. I can't have that. What if he goes to nursery school and says this? I'm going to be in big trouble. So, like, would it be nice if there was a version of it where how many curse words were there in it? Maybe not that many that like you could have lived without them.
Right.
So, I understand that, but that's really for the studio to provide.
Right.
And they do sometimes. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So they do sometimes. And then, you have network television also does it. But presumably they do that with the permission of the studio.
Right. Yeah. This was not just without the permission. It was without seeking the permission. It was full on without the permission. The studios the studios actively said, no, we don't want our content altered by a third party.
I can't imagine. Well, if I were them, I wouldn't ask either, because then they're going to get a hard no, because no artist wants to put artistic control in your hands, and to say you're editing a scene out. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's hardcore.
There was a DVD rental company. I don't remember the name of it. Like 20 years ago, who tried this exact same thing. There's a joke on Family Guy about it, where Lackluster Video had edited Barbara Streisand's nose because they were trying to remove objectionable content. So
now,
anyway, so a VHS rental company tried to do this exact same thing and got smacked down 2 decades ago. There was so much like legal precedent already in place that there was no way. These people were either completely delusional or just out to make a name for themselves in a crazy way.
Now, if they want to, like, did you ever see that movie Be Kind, Rewind? With Jack Black.
Wow.
And, like, if they want to make their own, which is probably also a copyright violation, but I think that would have more cred. Like, just sit there and try to act out Star Wars and don't act, and just, like, put on, like, a full pantsuit. Have Princess Leia put on a full pantsuit for that scene.
At that point, it would almost certainly be considered parody, and you could almost definitely get away with it.
Somebody did this, by the way, not the morality version.
Right.
Somebody did this for Revenge of the Sith. It's on YouTube somewhere. They did a scene for scene remake of Revenge of the Sith.
Whew.
But they didn't even try to do most of the special effects,
sure,
or the scenery. So it's like in someone's living room, you could clearly see it, or whatever. Like there's very, very so.
That's funny.
I don't know if I could watch a whole like 2 hours of it, but watch a few minutes. It's hilarious.
That's funny.
Anyway,
so
I digress.
So the important takeaway here is that altering somebody else's content for your own personal profit, not going to stand up in court. And that is our show. Thank you to those of you who have joined us live. I've seen people in all of our chat rooms this evening. Thank you for joining us. If you weren't able to join us live, that is okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you can subscribe to all of our shows and listen on your time at your convenience. Next month is almost entirely a normal month for us, which will be fantastic right up until the last weekend, which is the weekend that I will be at Anime Weekend Atlanta. I will actually be in a car during our normal time. So I'll be trying to create some content while we're there. But definitely for the new series, I don't know what to call it yet. If you guys have any ideas on what to call our little travel series, let me know. I've got a couple of ideas, but definitely be interested in hearing some outside ideas. So, yeah, so next month, almost totally normal. And so, I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back next week. Ciao.